Good morning, YouTube world. What is going on this morning? What's going on? What is the good news today? Tell me what it is. Tell me something good. Tell me something amazing about your life or your venture that you're dealing with, that you're going through. Tell me something absolutely amazing. I want to hear it. I want to hear it. Okay. Opt in for a chance. 1 month. Okay. What's going on, Golden State fan? How you doing, brother? Good to see you. How is everybody doing this morning? How's everybody doing this morning? How is everybody doing? Do me a favor, hit the number 1 button. Let me know where you guys are watching from. I'll tell you, I am a diehard. I am going on very little sleep, but I have things that I have to accomplish today. I have things that have to get done. So I didn't get very much sleep, but I got a lot done last night. I spent the day yesterday, Alberta, Canada. What's going on, Alberta? What's going on, Playboy? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? How's everybody doing? Good morning. Good morning. What a glorious, glorious day today is. Can you feel it? I mean, do you feel that, huh? Do you feel it? Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. Do you feel it? I wanted to see if maybe this morning, if maybe Jack was available today. Good morning, Tim. Tim, I've been reading your comments, man. I am loving your perspective. I'm loving Tim Lyon's perspective. He is laying out some truths in the things that he is saying, and he is not holding back. He is not holding back. Looking forward to getting back to Ironton and seeing my buddy Tim and seeing Sarah, getting going on you guys' federal civil rights lawsuit. I had to work all day yesterday on a couple lawsuits, on an injunction. I had things I had to work on all day yesterday. I really have not had a lot of time to come on and be the gregarious personality that I am. I have not had this opportunity. And now that I'm here this morning, I'm feeling blessed, I'm feeling blessed. I feel like I really am a part of it, I feel like I'm really a part of it. Sorry guys, I don't mean to laugh. I just have so many things in my head. Smash that like button, everybody. Take your finger right there and reach down and smash the like button. Just take your finger like that and just smash it. Just hit the like button. Just take your finger and just smash the like button. The light button. What's going on, Playboy? How are you guys doing? What is up, huh? What's up? We are standing up for the people of Ironton. Oh yeah, but we know that. We know that. I mean, Tim, we know that Terry is just Terry. Terry's not an auditor. He doesn't despise these nasty, filthy pigs. He doesn't dislike pigs. He can't be in a versus position with pigs. He can't do it. Tim, we know that about Ironton Auditor. The guy called Ironton Auditor, he can't actually be in a versus position. Do you see when I see these filthy pigs out here acting like absolute disgusting pigs? You guys can see that when I go at them, man, I go at them because they are the devils in our society. They are the gang. They are the fear, the darkness, the terror in the night, right? And so if you don't understand that about today's police culture and today's policing apparatuses, well then, my friend, you should not be what people call an auditor. You shouldn't be doing that job. You should be doing something else where you don't have to be in a versus position against pigs. Because let me just tell you something. You have to be able to look at that dude who put on a badge, a hunk of metal on, got a gun, I'm running around like I'm G.I. Joe loser, right? You have to look at that guy and hold disrespect for that person. You have to disrespect that man. You have to disrespect that woman. And why? Why? Why do you need to disrespect police? Why? Because they are the darkness. They are the terror. The worst thing in the world that can happen to you today is what? Someone type it down in. What is the worst thing that can happen to you? What is the worst thing today that can happen to you? But what's the worst thing today that can happen to you? Tell me what it is. Court is terrible. That's true. That is Kent Freeman. What's going on? Kent Freeman's in the hizzy. What's the worst thing that can happen to you today? Worst case scenario. What's the worst thing? Someone type it down in there. Hit the freaking like button. Okay? Oh, is that right? Oh gosh, I'm so happy to see you, ICB. You take care of yourself, brother. Bye-bye, Dottie. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Daddy-O. I'm going to miss you so much. You know, just so you guys know, when you turn and face these trolls, they are just losers. They're just losers. They're just losers, just sitting around. What's the worst thing that can happen to you today? What's the worst thing? Okay, Angie, how do you lose your rights? Just lay it, and it's very plain. What's the worst thing that can happen to you today? What is it? What is the worst thing that can happen to you today? And someone type it in the comments. I want to see if you guys can get it. What's the worst thing that can happen to me right now as I drive down this road? Right. There you go, Alan. Worst thing is, what could happen to you right now? What could happen to me right now? I'm driving down the road. Besides a catastrophic event where a tragedy happens, what's the worst thing that can happen? Right, Greg. Right. That's right. You can be arrested and hauled off to dungeon, or you can be killed by the cops. So what's the word? I mean, but just put it in perspective. I want to be clear here. You go to jail. That's the worst thing that could happen to you today. Does anybody have a worse scenario than that? I mean, barring finding out that your kid has cancer or that you have a tumor or something like that. I'm talking about what's the worst thing that can happen to me right now is one of these jackboot thug pigs losers. They can pull me over for no good reason and then drag me off to a dungeon. That can happen to me right this second. Do you think I'm afraid of another driver? Do you think that I'm afraid of another driver? I'm not afraid of another driver, not one single bit, because if we got to get into it, we're going to get into a mix-up right here, buddy. But I can take that guy on. I can deal with that guy. The only human being who can kidnap you off the street, impound your vehicle, throw you in a dungeon, charge you with a bunch of crimes is a cop. And so people are like, why do you hate cops so much? Because they do the devil's bidding. They do the devil's work. Remember, if you and your girlfriend or you and your wife get into a fight and she calls the cops because you're yelling at her or you threw something and put a hole in the wall, whatever, if she calls 911 on you, you're going to jail. Tim, Jeebus Crisp, if Sarah Page right now, Sarah Page is Tim's girlfriend, if Sarah Page right now calls the cops on you, Tim, you're going to jail. And the cop, you know what he's going to say? He's going to say, I'm just going to take him to jail and let the judge sort it out. But what he doesn't understand, or maybe he does, what he doesn't understand is that your life is in jeopardy the moment they drop you off at the rape cage. The moment they put you in torture cuffs, you are going through literal torture. It is hell. It is hell. It is hell. So I got a buddy. I'm going to call him Big A over there on the East Coast. I just talked to him. on the phone. And I said to him, hey, I said, listen, if we don't expose your story, dude, they're going to sentence you to prison. That's what I told him just now. I just got off the phone with him. I said to him, listen, if we do not talk about your upcoming sentencing, if we don't go into it, they're going to lock you in a dungeon. That's what they're going to do. And I tried to explain this to him. I did my duty damnedest. I really did. I really did. And he's not listening, and there's nothing I can do. He's probably listening to this live right now because I told him I had to do a live. But he's probably this guy's gonna go to prison. I mean, what's that say down there? Robinson, it said something about something rather. I don't know what you just said. I can't read because getting blocked for not towing the party line is a bad thing or badge of honor, some might say. Getting blocked by me or getting blocked by your Republican Democrat duopoly that really is only serving the elites? You know, if you're a diehard Democrat or you're a... Oh, have you turned? Icarus is driving and looking at the live stream. Is he driving and looking at... Oh, Icarus, have you turned? Have you gone to the dark side, Icarus? Is that what you've done? Because I drive and stream all the time. I'm not sure if you noticed or not, but my car has one of these auto lane corrector things. So what it does is it keeps me within the lane. And then because my cruise control does the gas and it does the brake at the same time, I don't really have to, I can have no hands and drive down the road just like this, and it works out just fine for me. There it is. You see that? It works out just fine. See the steering wheel? There it is. I don't need to touch it. There it is. There it is. So anyway, I just wanted to have a talk with you guys a little bit. We got a premiere coming out. I think I kicked it back to 10:30. It's coming out at 10:30. I want you guys to see that. I want you guys to see that. And then just so you know, in this video, originally when I came on to YouTube, I had been led to believe that you weren't allowed to call cops pigs and you weren't allowed to call them insects. You weren't allowed to call them certain things. I don't know what comments are showing up or which aren't. I don't lose any sleep over this. I don't give a shit. I really don't. I really don't. I don't care. I don't give a shit. You're going to have people who are going to be haters, and there's nothing you're going to be. To make sure you're on live chat, not top chat. Oh, I see. Full of beans again, huh? Full of beans. Is that what I'm? Full of beans. Good morning, Icarus. Did you guys see the documentary Icarus? It wasn't a documentary, it was a movie. Did you guys see that? The expose on my sexuality? Let me ask you guys a question. Could you even imagine being one of these people? Could you even imagine being one of these folks? And by the way, it's like we have got to keep shining the light to the future, to transparency. We've got to get it to where we jump the rails of YouTube, of social media. And that's the whole thing that I'm doing. I'm never going to stop. I'm never going to stop. Not ever. Not ever. I'm never going to stop. I will never stop. Let's see if we can reach Jack real quick. Let me see if Jack's around. Let's try him. What does it say? No believes, Chille don't care what people say. No believes? I'm not sure what you meant right there, but I'm just trying. Let's see if Jack is around today. Let's see if he's around. Let's call him to say, good morning, Jack. I don't know why, because I have, anybody can comment on this chat. I don't have it for some. Jack! Good morning, Jack. How are you, sir? You awake? I was giving you a call to see if you wanted to go over the trifold, specifically the 2021 case of the Commonwealth versus Barr. I wasn't sure if you were prepared or not to do that.
Are we on right now?
Does a bear poop in the woods?
I think you're always on.
Listen, man, the people need to be educated. The people need to know more information. And all I can do is just keep learning new information from guys like you and Bobby Law. And I've just got to keep on learning and trying to share more information with people so they really understand the basis of law. And right now, there's so many people, and I'm one of them, that we don't know everything. People don't know everything. And so, we got to make sure that we shine the light as bright and as hot as we possibly can. So it's like, I remember that we were talking briefly though, and let me just pull the trifold up here real quick. The case that we were talking about was the 2021 case of Barr, the Commonwealth versus Barr. Torture cuffs, work lines in the house. What's going on, work line? Good morning, everybody. Shanta, how are you, Shanta? Good to see you. So, Jack, I know you were doing a little bit of research on some history, and I kind of wanted to get into that a little bit about what you found and what you thought. Love you too, man. Love you too. Love you too. Love you too. But if you want, Jack, I can call you back this afternoon. We can do it then if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, I just have to I have a file I made up for you, and I got notes, and I think it'd be more productive. I just wasn't prepared for you to call me.
You know how I am, Jack. I'm a hard charger.
That's okay. Yeah, if you want to call me, we can do it now, or
it's up to you if you got your file. If you got your file, because I've got a 10:30 premiere, but I can push that back to 10:45 or 11. Yeah, send that over, Mike. I want to see that PDF about the right to travel. X Factor Law representing T-Roy, he actually won that case about, I thought we couldn't call them animals or insects either, but yeah, X Factor Law won a case for the right to travel, just so you guys know. The right to travel in America, X Factor Law won that case in Oregon with his brief. And so it was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so let me address somebody real quick. I don't really give a shit what you think, dude. I can send you packing. I don't really care. I don't care what you think. I don't give a shit. I've gone as far as I'm gonna go on clearing my name. I don't care if you stay or if you go. I don't care, because there's a bigger mission than me worrying about whether you like me or not because you're hearing rumors with no proof. I don't care. I care more about, do we educate people? Do we lead? Do we lead in changing this bullshit system? That's what I care the most about. And I'm already past all that other nonsense. I've already cleared my name. So I'm gonna move forward here. So what did you look up, Jack? What exactly were you researching?
Well, what I did is I saw the Trifold Commonwealth versus Barr, and that's a Supreme Court case. And what I did is I wanted to see where that came from. So what you wanted me to do is you have case precedent, and we talked about that earlier, where you call it stare decisis, and that's what stare decisis is Latin, and means stand by the decision. And so the courts stand by their previous, or they're supposed to stand by their previous decisions, and that's the difference between a court and an executive legislature. Is that a legislator, each new term, each new election, the courts have always traditionally wanted to keep that the cause of the precedent. The courts have a lot of power, and they're not elected, and in most cases, and so they're not subject to the desires or needs of the people, and so they use precedent. That being said, what this case that you cited, Commonwealth versus Barr, it's
And the case precedent is going to be Commonwealth versus Hicks. Is that what you're telling me? KS, is that right?
HICKS, yes.
Okay. And do you know the year of you know the year of that?
Yeah, and I'll briefly go over the Commonwealth versus Hicks is a case someone's at a convenience store, and the police were using some sort of surveillance cameras, and they saw him pull a handgun out of his, either out of his pants, like out of his belt, and show it to somebody, and they alerted patrol units. He went into the store, purchased his milk or whatever he's buying, came back out, and the police stopped him. They seized the gun. When they were up close to him seizing the gun, they smelled alcohol on his breath. They arrested him for DUI, and they also found the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania said there's many people in the state that carry concealed weapons, and the fact that he had just a concealed weapon is not enough to establish reasonable suspicion. Previous to that, there was a rule in Pennsylvania called the Robinson Rule.
The Robinson Rule?
Robinson Rule.
ROBINSON, Robinson Rule.
Okay. And what the Robinson Rule said was the fact that somebody has a concealed weapon justifies the police in seizing the weapon and making further inquiries as to the person having being legal to carry that weapon. So basically, the Robinson Rule just said we don't need. They just made it as a matter of law. If you have a concealed gun, the police know it. They can come up, they can seize the gun, they can detain you, they can question you until they determine that you're legally carrying that firearm.
So the Robinson Rule, that's going to be based off the Commonwealth versus Robinson?
Well, the Robinson Rule is the old rule. It's old, and that's what they overturned. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court overturned it in Commonwealth versus Hicks.
Okay.
Where they said, we're not following that rule anymore. There's a presumption of criminality. In Pennsylvania, we don't follow that. You need to have individualized suspicion of actual criminal activity. It's just as likely he was legally carrying it as if not. Now, for example, in a gun situation, the person's there, he's brandishing it, he's showing it. There's a call that says he just robbed someplace. Then the police can come. Now they have articulable facts to make it a proper detention, or possibly even an arrest. But the fact that they just see the gun or know that the person has a gun is no longer justifies a warrantless search or any type of seizure. So we come along into 2021, and the Hicks decision was decided, and it went up to the Supreme Court of the United States. The Commonwealth appealed it, and I guess it just never was taken. It went up on the 2019 docket, but I didn't see where it ever got resolved up there.
So was it granted certiorari or not? Did they hear? Did they?
No, I didn't see where it was ever granted certiorari. So it was on the 2019 docket. So that's good law. So then we come to 2021, and we have two police officers. We have a police officer apprentice, and he's training. He's training a new state trooper, Daniel Hembaugh, and basically they're driving around after midnight. And what do police do when they're driving around after midnight? They're looking for somebody to pull over.
Right.
So they see this car with I think there was more than one one person. There's a couple people in the vehicle, so they just decide to start following the vehicle. And they follow it. And they did not observe any criminal activity. And then they kept following it because it appeared to be traveling at a fast rate of speed, and it was after midnight. So then at one point, the vehicle failed to stop at a solid white stop line on the road, so then they pulled the vehicle over.
Right.
And when they got to the vehicle, the training officer, this Hombach, said that she smelled burnt marijuana in the car. And the lady that was driving was the Timothy Barr is the defendant in this case, and his wife was driving the car. Her name's Terry Barr. And then there's another gentleman in the rear seat. And they smelled the marijuana. Then they asked everybody to get out of the vehicle. And the passenger, who's Timothy Barr, he began to argue with the troopers and said no one's getting out of the vehicle. And eventually they got everybody out of the vehicle based on Pennsylvania versus Mims.
Right. Right.
And
So Pennsylvania versus Mims is the case that if the cops tell you you have to get out of the car, it's a 1977 case. It's an extension of Terry versus Ohio. You do have to get out of the car if the cop tells you to get out of the car in the name of officer safety. So Timothy Barr and his wife Sarah Barr were in a car with another person, and then they were pulled over. The cop said that they smelled marijuana, and then the cop ordered them out of the car. Is that correct so far, Jack?
that's correct.
Okay.
And so, and there's some other case law in here, because Pennsylvania is a little, like we've talked about before, Chille, Pennsylvania treats constitutional questions, especially with the vehicle, they protect their citizens more than the federal Constitution.
For Pennsylvania versus Mims to be valid, that the cop has to have a prudent man has to believe that you're armed and dangerous to order you out of the car. So is there a possibility that Timothy Barr could have said, I'm not getting out of the car because you don't believe that I'm armed and dangerous? Would that have been a possibility?
That's not, well, what's in the record of this case is that he just started to argue and said he wasn't getting out of the effing car.
Right. That makes sense.
And the problem with that Pennsylvania versus Mims case is, I agree that's what the case says, but in practice, that's never been what's done, and the courts haven't upheld it since. And something I'd love to do with you, Chille, I have a case that's on appeal right now, but I have a video of it, and you can go through it step by step about how this officer violated this young man's rights.
Right.
You can analyze it, and it would show, because I'm sure people go through that all the time.
Were they ordered out of the car using Pennsylvania versus Mims?
Yep, ordered them out of the car, did a pat-down search. I mean, it's a perfect case to illustrate what police do when they're fishing for crime instead of just handling a traffic ticket.
Well, right, because every stop now is a Terry stop, meaning they're opening an investigation on you.
Right. Well, yeah, a traffic stop is considered a Terry stop. However, I think it's been curtailed, and I'm thinking it's Commonwealth versus Rodriguez. I'm not sure.
Right.
But that the police officers cannot extend the length of the traffic stop to investigate unless they have facts that lead them to justify their investigation. So they have to conduct their traffic stop, get it finished, and let you go.
But they do it all the time, Jack. They just say that, oh, they need more time. They're going to get a dog and run it around. And people don't know their rights. I told that cop in Tempe, you have 8 minutes to conclude your traffic stop. What is the exact amount of minutes that they have to complete their traffic stop?
There's not a minute. That's the way the courts handle these things, because, and I just read in one of the Supreme Court decisions, there was a complaint by the dissent saying, we seem to want to have bright line rules for law enforcement, but we want to have these open-ended, reasonable man standards whenever it comes to people's constitutional rights.
Right.
And it might even be one of these cases. That's why catching me like this without my notes, easy. But that's the thing. So anyway, going back to Bar, they get him out of the car, and they search the car, and they found some green leafy substance in the car, which was marijuana. I think they found a gun also.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing is that the idea, just so you know, I smoke marijuana, and the idea that you're impaired from smoking marijuana, you really got to be a rookie. You really got to be a rookie if you can't take a hit of weed and then drive a car. I mean, you really got to be a non-smoker who smokes once a blue moon, and then according to Sanjay Gupta, you will be impaired. But if you're a regular weed smoker, one hit of marijuana will not impair you. So they pull over Tim Barr and his wife Sarah. They pull them out of the car. They find a green leafy substance, and they find a gun. And
yeah, and they also found the green leafy substance was kind of on the floorboard, and then they found a Ziploc bag with actual marijuana in it, and then they found, and then in the back seat was a jacket that was rolled up, and they found a gun in the jacket. So they get charged with possession, and they get charged with the gun. And so when they're going to court, they have a suppression hearing, and the defendants then bring in an expert who talks about the Medical Marijuana Act in Pennsylvania.
right.
And they passed the Medical Marijuana Act a few years earlier. I think it might have been 2016, not sure, but they passed that, and the trial court. So the first part of this happens in the trial court. So he's charged. He is now facing the charges. As part of the process of doing that, his attorneys filed a suppression motion.
Right.
That's the remedy we all get for illegally obtained evidence. If the police obtain evidence illegally, the remedy you have is to have it not be used in a trial against you.
A suppression hearing.
Curtailed as far as Miranda, with the Supreme can't sue civilly for a violation of Miranda, but you can that evidence is still can't be used in a trial against you.
Okay.
And the trial court concluded, as a matter of law, that the troopers lacked probable cause to search the vehicle, and that the search was unconstitutional. And then what the trial court did is they based on that case of Hicks, and basically they just use a simple analogy that they set forth a rule. If the Pennsylvania legislature enacts a law that permits something that may be circumstances, but they permit people to use it legally, whether it be a concealed weapon or marijuana or I can't even think of another example, but anything that would be
Alcohol, illegal alcohol. Because that was the whole Carroll case of 1925. But the case that we're talking about right now is we're talking about the one case of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus Barr. what Jack is talking about. Jack is a lawyer from somewhere in America. He's not out of Ohio, and he's just giving us his synopsis here on explaining the 2021 case of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus Barr. Go ahead, Jack. Sorry for interrupting.
Right. And I think the important, what they did is the appellate court. So you have your trial, they have the suppression, the evidence gets thrown out. What usually happens at that point is the prosecutor will file a document that basically says he can no longer prosecute this case without that evidence, and he can then take an appeal. Generally, appeals have to be taken when the whole case is done, but in that case, the prosecutor gets the chance to take the appeal.
Right.
And that's where the procedural posture was, and it went to the Pennsylvania Superior Court. They made a ruling. They affirmed the ruling, but they remanded it back to the trial court because the Superior Court did something different. The Superior Court says that the trial judge did not look at other factors.
Oh, really?
As to whether they should have had probable cause. And
what were the other factors? What were the other factors, Jack? Did they say?
Yeah, that gets addressed by the Supreme Court.
Okay.
So that's what the Superior Court does. So then that gets appealed and to the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, and the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania then looks at it and they say that and they said that they followed the view of the trial court, saying that the smell of marijuana is no longer per se indicative of crime.
Okay.
So just the smell of marijuana does not indicate a criminal activity.
So now, but that's just out of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus Barr. Is that case going to be precedent across the United States of America?
No.
Okay.
No, and that's what we talked about before. Is this would be the kind of case that you would use as what they call persuasive authority. It's not a precedent.
It's the case is on point.
But it's on point. Right. So if you're over in I don't know Michigan, they have recreational marijuana there.
Okay.
And we're in Michigan, and you get pulled over, and there's not been a case ever decided about the smell of marijuana in Michigan, except before when it was all illegal. And so what you do is, as an attorney or as a defendant, you bring up the fact that we have over here in Pennsylvania, they decided this case, and it's exactly on point because the facts are exactly the same. Police just smelled marijuana. They searched the car. It shouldn't be indicative of criminal activity any longer. That would be your way to argue the persuasive authority. However, so the Supreme Court goes further from there, and I'm going through my notes here.
The Commonwealth Pennsylvania Supreme Court's the one you're talking about, correct?
Yeah. So then after the Superior Court, then it goes up to the Supreme Court. And one thing the Superior Court said is that they didn't follow that it was the same analogy between the Hicks case, which we talked about, and marijuana. And what they did basically is they made this is how they framed it. They said possession of a firearm is generally legal with limited exceptions. They said the possession of marijuana, by contrast, is generally illegal, except for a few exceptions for medical marijuana use.
Okay.
So that's where the Superior Court of Pennsylvania, that's the intermediate court. So they made that kind of a ruling, but they remanded it back to the trial court for making a determination of whether or not there were other factors involved. then it went right up to it went straight to the Supreme Court, and just seeing what they noted.
What's the importance of it being within the Pennsylvania Supreme Court or the federal Supreme Court? What's going to be the difference there, Jack?
Well, the importance is that's going to be, in my opinion, it's the beginning of the trend of where you're not going to be able to use the drug sniffing dogs anymore.
It's coming to an end?
I would think. I think in Pennsylvania, I can't see them using a drug sniffing dog for anything. Unless you could prove that the drug sniffing dog doesn't sniff for marijuana.
Okay.
Because that's all the drug is doing is well, this is what they claim it's doing, is that it's through its heightened sense of smell, it's able to discern that there's illegal narcotics in a vehicle or a container.
Okay.
And the dog's not trained to discern marijuana from cocaine, from methamphetamine.
Okay.
And so the fact that what the dog's smelling is marijuana, that's not, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court said that's not going to be per se indicative of crime anymore.
Well, because
so that's why that case is very important.
Well, you know, someone mentioned a few minutes ago that Nixon's BS war on drugs from 1971 is still going on, and we know why he invented the war on drugs was to lock up hippies and black people. He said it himself. So if you're saying that the drug sniffing dogs are going to come to an end, you know, I'm looking forward to that happening.
Yeah, unless they can retrain the dogs and be able to show that they're not sniffing out legal substances. And one of the good things I did see in the Supreme Court decision, there's not very many of them, but the one thing I see, they may be more, I'm hoping that they will be more protective of people's rights.
Individual liberty. A lot of those cases were passed specifically because of racism, but it's like we just get to this point where the court isn't upholding individual liberty for you to be free. They're upholding laws that are put on top of us to try to control us and to try to dominate us and to try to put us in a dungeon. And that's what the Supreme Court has done since the very beginning. What do you see different about this Supreme Court that we might be able to look forward to, even though they just overturned Roe versus Wade and the women in America are pretty upset?
Well, they come from a line of thought that was probably most popularized with Justice Scalia. And he would sometimes make rulings that surprised me. He made a ruling called the Kelo. The name of it it's a Kelo decision, and basically what he said is, and what they did in that case is it was the police driving by someone's house with a infrared gun or an infrared detector, and they would run the infrared detector and they would see where there was excessive heat coming out of a house, and that was what they considered indicative of growing marijuana, and then they would get a search warrant. And Justice Scalia said that's an unconstitutional search. It's new technology, but it was a very surprising case. He could have just as easily went the other way. So yeah. I'm hoping that when I read the gun, the opinion with the New York Gun and Pistol Club, they talked about historical record at the time of the founding, and then at the time of the establishment of the 14th Amendment, which was, I think, was 1868. They used those historical references when they they would rule on that case. I'm
Right.
hoping they apply that same type of framework to constitutional liberty cases.
Right.
Because the searches, they can't, because the first thing they did was said, not every search is unconstitutional, only unreasonable searches.
Right.
So what's a reasonable search and what's an unreasonable search?
Right.
That's left up in the air to determine. But I would think that if you were, Sam Adams with his cart of tobacco going to market, and the British stopped you and started pulling it all out and throwing it on the ground, that would be unreasonable.
Yeah, I've given full lectures on this. This one word is called reasonable. And that's how the Supreme Court has stripped us of all of our fundamental rights to be free, of all of our fundamental liberties. Everything that we're born with, given to us by God, the Supreme Court has stripped away using the word reasonableness. Is it reasonable for the cops to run up and put their hands all over you in a Terry stop? Sure, it's perfectly reasonable in the name of officer safety. Is it reasonable that they order you out of the car? Sure it is. If a prudent man would believe that you're armed and dangerous, then he can order you out of the car. Well, a prudent man means what exactly? And so this has been a resounding broken record at the Supreme Court level and the state Supreme Court level since the inception of our country. It's atrocious. The word reasonable is how we've lost all of our rights.
Right, and what I'm saying is that hopefully they go back to what was being reasonable in 1789, and instead of what's reasonable, what we consider reasonable today. Right. Because I don't consider it reasonable that before you're arrested that they put cuffs on you.
Right.
Now, if you're acting in such a way that you're dangerous or in that kind of a situation, maybe then it's warranted. But for just a typical detention, they should not be allowed to put cuffs on you.
But we're seeing, Jack, people get pulled over, and upon being pulled over, immediately they say, get out of the car and put your hands behind your back. The moment they get pulled over, the very second they're pulled over, they're told to get out and put their hands behind their back. I would not comply to that.
Right. What I'd want to know is, because I don't see it every time, what I'd want to know is what facts is the officer to do that.
Right.
If it's just their standard policy, it's wrong.
Right.
And the police that I've talked to, they don't follow. They don't follow that you should put everybody in handcuffs.
Well, maybe the ones you talk to, but the what we see time and time is just these cops are terrible because there's no checks and balances on cops. The torture cuffs go on you immediately, and you haven't done anything wrong. And that's the reason why I hate cops so much. Because putting me in those torture cuffs all those times in my 20s and 30s, I have a disdain for these guys that won't go away. It just hurts. And I hate to be negative Nancy, but I just can't stand them.
And I'd like to do a lecture in the future, or not a lecture, but a discussion in the future about the handcuffs and the torture cuffs, and how you handle that as a citizen.
Right.
To get the most out of it.
Right.
If you know what I mean. The police are they're putting handcuffs on. They're not following. The fact that they're putting them on at all is there's a high potential to cause injury.
Right. Well, it's the number one lawsuit by cops. But the number one reason why cops are sued is because of handcuffs.
Right, and the handcuffs are on, and there's some pretty good solid case law on excessive force with the handcuffs.
Right.
And we can discuss that in the future. But going back to the Pennsylvania versus Barr, what the Supreme Court ended up saying is that the police officers were basing their search solely on the odor of marijuana, and they and we're not going to allow that anymore. And they suppressed all the evidence, and that's why whether it was your group, when you picked that case, somebody probably did some research. You were using a research engine and pulled that case up point with the facts, and it's and I haven't done any research across other states yet, or the state I'm in, to see if anything's if that's been followed. But I think it's and that's what happens with law, Chille, is that, and you're familiar with it, something pop, they call that dicta. So you'll be reading a case about marijuana, and they may talk about guns in the case, or they may talk about how it applies to alcohol, and you don't use that as the holding of the case. It's not the conclusion of the case, but that dicta then eventually sometimes becomes law. So that's the way it works. Is it starts with a state case, Pennsylvania's case, and then it kind of proliferates, and other states start following. The funny thing with some of the stuff was the government's argument in that case, and what they wanted the court to do was use a totality of the circumstances. So how our rights get hammered by the courts is when they use ambiguous reasonable man standard, or they use a prudent man standard, or they say this is reasonable versus unreasonable, because a judge then can say there's no bright line rule, so it's unreasonable.
Right.
And usually what happens is it's reasonable or unreasonable based in part on what the conduct was, but it's also based in part improperly, I may add, on the circumstances of the case as a whole. Was the person is involving child porn, or is it involving some minor offense? Searches should never be more or less reasonable depending on what the charges are. But I see it time and time again where the more serious the charges, the more allowance the courts give to the police.
Right. Right.
And that is not rule of law.
Well, that's where the whole thing where the cops say that he's scared, and that is now the law. If the cop is scared, how he feels is now the primero number one element to my rights being stripped from me or not. And it's just so sad. It's so sad.
Well, yeah, and I don't think that the courts initially provided for that. And that's where that's where maybe we can, if we go over a video that I have, I can show, and I can show how the trial court analyzed it. It was the most absurd ruling. But what they do is they say we require in Terry. If you read Terry, they require the police to articulate specific facts.
Yes. And
I see time and time again where the facts were high crime area, and even in these cases, they said that was one of the factors they said supported the search for the marijuana at bar, was that it was in a high crime area.
Right.
And the one justice says that we know that sure parts of a city are high crime areas.
Well,
Do they get any less constitutional protection?
and then I think the totalitarian circumstances of the scene, doesn't that come from the 1981 case of Cortez versus United States? Isn't that when that first text shows up using the totalitarian circumstances of the scene?
You know, I'm not sure. That's the totality. I would defer to you.
The totalitarian circumstances of the scene, I believe, was extended in the Cortez case of 1981. And that says that the police, when they arrested Cortez on the border, when a border patrol agent arrested Cortez, because he saw footprints in the sand around the border, and then he only saw one person in the car, he took the totalitarian circumstances of the scene, and then the courts then began to use the totalitarian circumstances of the scene to create reasonable articulable suspicion, which is not the constitutional standard. And then from there, then they can open an investigation. So.
Right, and the one thing about Pennsylvania is Pennsylvania is very strict about that you have to have individualized suspicion.
Right.
You can't, the police in Pennsylvania cannot go into a keg party and just start requiring everybody to give them ID to see if they're underage or not. There has to be something specific about each person that they can order them to provide their ID.
It's just insane, dude. We're not living under a constitutional standard. We're not living by the Bill of Rights. We're living by absolute tyranny, by a government Supreme Court that is unelected and unaccountable to the people, that has nothing in common with you and me. There's nothing in common with you and me. It's just driving me crazy, you know.
And you would hope that they use, or it's hoped, which I'm not seeing, but you would hope that they use their intellectual and their the best education that our country can offer. They use all that to do what's best for everyone, and I don't see it time and time again.
Yeah, we're facing it. 6 minutes. I got to jump off this, but let's talk again soon. And anything else you want to add before we jump?
No, just that case is important for the fact that, you know. But if I was telling people, I would say your car is not the place to be doing anything illegal. If you want to do illegal, don't do it in a vehicle at this point, because it's movable, and the police have the ability to really take advantage of that. And so it's not like it might have been when we were young. You know, we drive around and do whatever we would in our cars, and the police, that's what they use as their focal point for initiating investigations and making arrests. That's where these crime task force, they're not going to people's homes or businesses or investigating crime. They're just going over people. So that's what I'd add to it.
You know, and the last that I checked, you know, in multiple states, and I looked this up at last June or July of 2021, the number one reason why someone gets arrested is because of marijuana. That's the number one reason why people get arrested in California, number one reason why people get arrested in New York, number one reason why people get arrested in Florida. It's like, it's just so shitty that this is what we're dealing with, where you get arrested for marijuana and it's perfectly harmless. It doesn't hurt anybody.
Well, and the reason is, and they discussed it in that case, is because of the distinctive smell. And so now, with this case coming out of Pennsylvania, and hopefully it starts making its rounds, at least the underlying philosophy starts being applied in other states, that no longer is the case.
Right.
And then police actually have to see a crime occur instead of just smelling something or saying they smell something.
No, someone just chimed in, Ranger Horse, you're mistaken. Look it up, dude. The number one reason in most states why someone gets arrested is because of marijuana. That's just the way it is. That's just what we're facing in the United States of America. The number one reason why people get arrested in America is for marijuana, because they say they smell weed. And then just so you know, if you're black, you have 3 times more of a chance of being arrested. But it doesn't matter, because if you're white and you get arrested, it doesn't matter if you had 3 times the chance or not. You got arrested and you were white. So it doesn't matter what the statistics are if you're the white guy getting arrested. And it doesn't matter what the statistics are if you're the black guy getting arrested. The whole point is that people are getting arrested for the smell of marijuana, and the cop can just make it up. You know? So
well, they're using the smell of marijuana to conduct a search. And usually they find some other kind of evidence. Is usually,
yeah.
But they can just make it up. And the drug dog, we know the drug dog scam that goes on. And
yeah, we do. Because I can make my dog roll over with just one finger and just wag it, and my dog will do whatever I want. You guys are gonna see that this next week. I got my dog coming out. I got 8 minutes till Wapner, so I gotta go, Jack. But listen, love you, man. Thank you for jumping on the call with me, and let's talk again real soon, okay?
All right, my friend. Give me some more lead time. You gotta let me be prepared.
You're a brilliant lawyer, Jack. I appreciate your time. Thank you, sir.
All right, my friend.
Okay, bye, Jack. So that was Jack. He's a lawyer here in the United States of America. Really a great guy. He is actively fighting back against the police state, prison state, death state. And so I will unblock Gloria. Remember, you guys, the negative people are going to come in here and say, "Oh, I didn't get my trifold," or "Oh, my trifold was incorrect," or they're all going to say stupid stuff. But just remember, it's just not true. There's just people who are trying to steer us off course. They've got the numbers way down. They got my website way down. But it doesn't matter, because we're not going to stop. We're not going to stop. I'm not going to ever, ever, ever stop. It'll never happen. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I mean, it's perfectly fine, And there's always going to be trolls. They're never going to stop coming. So, I don't think there's a rogue moderator. I had everybody and remodded everybody. So, Kent Freeman's in the room, everybody. Everybody say hello to Kent. Kent Freeman, we have a federal civil rights lawsuit going with Kent. So, yeah, when you are an agent of change, and remember, you guys are seeing it. Lots of people are making a living by using the DeletelawZ name and using my name. Lots of people are making a living by using me as their thumbnail. Lots of people. So it's you got to remember what their ultimate goal is. There was never a community of auditors. That just isn't true. You have a bunch of people on YouTube who make money, and that's what they do. But it's not about a community of people who want justice and change. I wish that it was, but it's not. So we just got to make sure we keep going and stay super, super focused. So that means that the case, the most relevant on-point case for marijuana is the 2021 case of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus Barr. And so, what you're talking about, is making sure that you understand what an on-point case means. That means it's the most relevant case that's on point now. That it is right here, right now. That's the most relevant case. And as we see, each different state is going to start to relax or create recreational or medicinal marijuana. I don't know if there'll be some states that don't do it. I think we're at 38 states now. Does anybody know about that? How many states? I think it's 38 states right now. It's a majority of states that have either recreational or recreational or there we go. There we go. So, you know what I mean? It's just a matter of that's what's going on. And so you guys have to know what the most on-point relevant case is, and that's going to be the 2021 case of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus Barr. You know, decriminalization is the correct answer. That's where we have to get to. Legalization will lead to all kinds of problems where the government will try to regulate the marijuana like they're doing in California, like they're doing in Colorado. But in California specifically, just so you know, the taxes on marijuana are so high that right? But it's a lot cheaper and easier to just buy a bag of weed from someone who isn't in a marijuana store, so that you don't have to pay, 30% taxes on an eighth of weed. An eighth of weed should cost, $40 to $60 for an expensive eighth of weed. And in California, you're looking at $85 sometimes for a decent bag of weed in California. And so $85 for an eighth or a quarter, it's just like, what am I doing here? 85 bucks. Is it 19 states are recreational? Thanks, Tom Robertson. I appreciate the information, man. It's like we need more states to cross over into marijuana, because if we don't, we're just going to continue to have this criminalization problem of marijuana, and it's just going to ruin the fabric of our country, as the war on drugs has already done. You guys are well aware that the war on drugs has completely and utterly ruined and decimated a free America, a thriving America. It's criminalized Americans. It's made people who are not criminals because they broke a drug law, when, to the truth be told, most people do like some sort of drug, whether that be caffeine, marijuana, alcohol, or even something harder. And so I don't understand why we continue to perpetuate a criminal America when really we don't need to do that anymore. We need to decriminalize all drugs and let people do what they're going to do. And if they break the law, when they're on drugs or in their mission to get drugs, then they should be held accountable for what they do. But the idea that the chemical itself is against the law is the problem. That is the problem in our country. And it is just really sad. We are 3 minutes till Wapner. That premiere comes out in 3 minutes. This cop, just so you know, in this premiere coming out, this cop, he watches this female cop knee this guy who's in the car. She lifts up her knee and she knees him. Now, I call these cops dirty maggots because, and just so you know, the first time I released this video 6-8 months ago, however long I released it, I thought calling cops maggots would get your account suspended. So I bleeped out the word maggot, but then all you heard was it. So it sounded like fag it. It sounded like, FAGGOTS is what it sounded like. And I didn't say that. So I actually re-released the video this morning for you guys to watch it. It's coming out in just a couple of minutes here. So I'll get it prepped up on my phone so that I know when it comes on, so that we can all watch it together. Don't meet me there, beat me there. Make sure. And then as I drive through Texas here, you got these cops hiding all over the sides of the road. Is that really what we want? Is that really the goal? Is that really what we want in the United States of America? It looks like this premiere is going to start in 60 seconds. So we got a premiere starting in 60 seconds. Make sure you guys don't meet me there, beat me there. So we're 60 seconds away. There's 18 people in the chat right now. We should have all 230. Yeah, you can actually hear me say maggots. That's why I re-released it. Because, people who lie all the time and cheat and hurt people, they're going to lie about me. And so I released this so you can clearly hear me say maggots. It's plain as day. Matter of fact, it's going to start in 60 seconds. And the first minute, I put a compilation of calling these cops maggots altogether. And I'm not a sound engineer, so I can't just dub in my voice to sound exactly how I sound on the streets in Hollywood, California. I just can't do it. So it's not something I can do. But this premiere is going to start in about 60 seconds, called Knees Hurt, or that's the thumbnail, says knees hurt. So this will be coming out in a second. And so, you know, oh, there's Kent. Sorry about that, Kent. Let me add you. There you go, Kent. I added you as a moderator so that you can moderate if you want to moderate, Kent. So, you know, and I'm just driving along here in Texas, and there's so many cops just hiding. They're just hiding, and it is such an embarrassment. So you got 18 people in the chat over there. Make sure you guys meet me over at this video coming out. Let me see what the name of the video is. It's called, the title of this video, someone could put the link in the description. It's called Cop Throws Knees. Cop Throws Knees. And that's going to come out right now. Someone could pop that link in there if you would, please. Share video. Copy link. Let me go into the lives here and see if I can drop a comment. There it is right there. Greg just put it in there. So you guys don't meet me there, beat me there. Get over there if you would, please, as quickly as you can, because the video is going to start in about 45 seconds. Premiere alert. The premiere is coming out. And it's a minute and 30 seconds. I just re-released this because someone said that I said fag, and I did not say that. I don't say that word because my best friend's gay. So I don't say things like that. But people who are just lowball, they'll always try to somehow hurt you or disparage you or make you look bad. But then I was like, no, dude, no. The only reason that I beeped out the word maggots is because I thought it was against the rules on YouTube in November. That's when this originally was aired. So I want you guys to just, now you guys can spread the truth, because people lie. Liars will always just lie. And that's what they do. They lie to mislead. They lie for attention. They're liars. And so you can't rely on them. We're 30 seconds away, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by. I appreciate you guys. God bless you. God bless the United States. And just remember one thing, under any circumstances, under any conditions, we don't stop. And I'm not going to stop. So I'll see you guys at the top. Meet me over here. I'll see you guys there in 30 seconds, okay? And I'll see you guys on the next one. See you at the premiere. See you at the premiere, T-Roy. Love you, buddy. Talk to you guys soon. Later, Gator.